billionaire arrived home earlier than expected, and saw what his wife had done to his black adoptive mother. The electric Mercedes glided silently through the circular driveway of the Malibu mansion when David Thompson decided to cancel his last-minute meeting and surprise his family. 3 weeks traveling around Japan closing the biggest acquisition in the history of his tech company deserved a celebration at home. At 41, the CEO of Thompson Tech had turned a Silicon Valley startup into an $8 billion empire. But as he turned off the engine, his mind wasn't on record numbers. It was on the 67-year-old woman who had saved him when he was just 9 years old. Ruth Williams wasn't his biological mother, but she had been the only mother who really mattered. When the adoption system placed him in her small home on the south side of Chicago, she was a retired nurse living on her modest pension. Even so, she worked extra shifts at 2 hospitals to pay for his programming classes. David put away the keys and walked toward the side entrance that led directly to the gourmet kitchen. He planned to surprise Ruth by making her favorite tea, Earl Grey with honey, just as she had taught him years ago when he would come home from school upset after facing mean comments about his family situation. The sound of tense voices made him stop abruptly behind the Italian marble column. "I've told you not to use the front entrance when I have guests." His wife Isabella's voice cut through the air like a razor. "What kind of impression do you think this gives my clients' wives?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Isabella. I just wanted to." Ruth's voice was a broken whisper, the perfect English David knew now laden with fear. "I don't care what you wanted. You're the maid here, not the queen of the house just because my husband has this strange obsession with you." David felt the blood freeze in his veins. Maid? Ruth had moved into the guest wing a year ago, after he insisted she deserved to live in comfort after decades of sacrifice. Isabella had always shown such affection for dear Ruth, at least when he was around. "I'm not a maid," Ruth murmured with a dignity that made David's heart ache. "David invited me to live here as family." Isabella's cruel laughter echoed through the kitchen. "Family? A black woman from Chicago who picked him up from an institution when no one else wanted him? Please. You were paid by the state to take care of him, just like any nanny." The Italian leather briefcase slipped from David's numb fingers, landing silently on the Persian rug. For 32 years, Ruth had never mentioned receiving any assistance from the state. To him, she had always been simply the woman who chose to love him when the whole world seemed to have given up on him. "And another thing," Isabella continued, "stop leaving your hair in the drain of the bathroom you use. It's disgusting. Starting today, you'll use the bathroom in the basement storage room. But the basement bathroom doesn't have heating. Then use cold water. It might be good for you to learn that you're not a guest here, you're tolerated." David cautiously approached the kitchen entrance and saw Ruth, the woman who had worked 16 hours a day to pay for his guitar and computer lessons, huddled against the granite island like a wounded bird. Her hands, the same ones that had comforted him during endless nights of nightmares about abandonment, trembled as she held a cup of now-cold tea. "Isabella is right," Ruth whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "I should have stayed in Chicago. This isn't my place." "Exactly." Isabella slammed her hand on the counter. Finally, a moment of lucidity. "You never belonged in this world, Ruth. You can pretend all you want, but you'll always be a retired nurse from a poor neighborhood trying to pass herself off as something she's not." It was then that David noticed the detail that completely devastated him. Ruth was wearing a simple cleaning uniform. Isabella had literally turned the woman who raised a billionaire into a maid. As he quietly retreated to the garden, a memory came flooding back with devastating force. Ruth at 35, working 3 jobs to pay for his first programming competition, saying, "Baby, one day you're going to be so big that you'll help people like us. But never, ever let anyone make you forget where you came from." Now, at 67, the woman who had sacrificed her best years so that he could dream was being humiliated in the house that her sacrifices had made possible. David took out his cell phone and opened the mansion's security app. If Isabella was doing this now, in front of him, what happened when he was away for weeks? If this story of betrayal and racism touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because you'll find out how a man who owed everything to his adoptive mother turned her humiliation into the greatest lesson in justice a prejudiced woman ever received. For 3 hours, David remained locked in his office reviewing weeks of security footage. Each video revealed a new layer of systematic cruelty that made him nauseous. Isabella forcing Ruth to eat cold leftovers in the basement, while she dined on gourmet dishes in the main dining room. Isabella hiding the remote control for the heater when David was traveling, leaving Ruth shivering in the cold during California's winter nights. Isabella throwing away letters that arrived for Ruth from old colleagues in Chicago, even intercepting medical correspondence. But it was the video from 2 weeks ago that completely destroyed him. Ruth had prepared a special dinner to celebrate the 32nd anniversary of her adoption, waiting for David to return from a conference in New York. Isabella came home, saw the table set with candles and the homemade cake Ruth had baked with her own arthritic hands. "How pathetic," Isabella said directly to the camera, as if she knew David would be watching. An old black woman pretending to be the mother of a white billionaire. "That's delusional even for you, Ruth." Isabella threw the whole cake in the trash, blew out the candles, and forced Ruth to clean everything up before David arrived. When he called from his trip to ask if Ruth had enjoyed the surprise he had asked Isabella to organize, flowers and a special dinner, his wife lied with frightening ease. "Oh, she loved it, honey. She was so moved she cried. You should have seen it. She said you're the best son a mother could have." Ruth had cried. David could see it in the recordings. But not out of joy. Out of humiliation and loneliness, eating a cold sandwich in the basement while Isabella posted photos of the family dinner on social media, using old images to maintain the charade. The investigation revealed something even more sinister. David discovered that Isabella had a private WhatsApp group called Malibu Elite Wives, where she shared updates about Ruth with her equally privileged and racist friends. "David's old maid is getting more and more confused," Isabella wrote. "Yesterday, I found her trying to use the master bathroom again. I had to remind her where she belongs. These people never learn boundaries." Her friends' responses were equally venomous. "At least you have patience, dear. I would have sent her back to the ghetto where she belongs." Jennifer Walsh, wife of the CEO of Walsh Industries. "David needs to understand that charity has its limits. It's one thing to help these people, it's another to turn your home into a shelter." Patricia Sterling, heiress to a real estate fortune. But it was Isabella's response that made David's blood run cold. "Don't worry, girls. I'm documenting all of her episodes. Once I have enough evidence of dementia and incapacity, I'll convince David that she needs professional care in an institution. Problem solved permanently." David closed his laptop, his hands shaking. Isabella wasn't just abusing Ruth. She was orchestrating a campaign to remove her from their lives permanently. That night, he pretended to be asleep when Isabella came home from the spa. Through half-closed eyelashes, he watched his wife check messages on her phone, smiling with satisfaction as she read updates from her hate group. "David," she whispered, nudging him gently. "I need to talk to you about Ruth tomorrow. Some troubling things have happened while you were away." He mumbled something incoherent, pretending to be sleepy, while Isabella prepared for another Oscar-worthy performance as the concerned wife. The next day, during breakfast prepared by Ruth, which Isabella only allowed when David was present, the charade began. "Honey, I don't want to worry you, but your mother has been having some episodes lately." Isabella gently touched David's arm, her voice laden with feigned concern. "Yesterday I found her trying to cook at 3 in the morning, completely confused about what day it was." Ruth stopped serving coffee, her eyes filling with panic. David could see that she wanted to defend herself, but she had learned through months of abuse that any protest would only make her situation worse. "She's also been leaving the bathroom running and forgetting to close doors," Isabella continued, each lie delivered with rehearsed conviction. "I'm worried she might hurt herself. Maybe it's time we sought some professional help." David watched Ruth cringe with every word, the dignity she had maintained through decades of adversity being systematically shattered by the woman he had trusted to protect her. It was then that a specific memory came back with full force. David at age 12, coming home from school with a cut lip after a fight with boys who called him an orphan bastard. Ruth sat him down in the kitchen of their small Chicago home, cleaned his wounds, and said something he never forgot. "Baby, some people will try to make you feel small because they themselves feel small inside. But you need to remember, you carry within you the strength of all the ancestors who fought so you could be here. And one day when you're big and strong, you'll protect other people like I protect you now." Ruth had kept her promise. She worked 3 jobs to pay for his programming classes. She sold her own jewelry to buy his first computer. She stayed up all night helping him with school projects after double shifts at the hospital. Now it was time for David to keep his. "Interesting," David said calmly, taking a sip of coffee. And where exactly would you recommend she get this professional help? Isabella's eyes sparkled with a victory she believed was close at hand. Well, Sunny Acres is a very respected residence.